Welcome back, Wolfpack. Verlis here. After my long anti-meta discussion, now it's time to talk about anti-meta Pokemon that you can integrate in your team or look for similar Pokemon. There are a lot of anti-meta Pokemon. I was going through the comments on the videos, and a lot of you guys have found some really cool ways of overcoming some pretty common threats right now. I'm going to just show off some of my favorites, and I love Torkoal. Like, Torkoal has been one of my anti-meta favorites for quite some time now, ever since I found out how brutal it is. Thank you, Berto. My friend Berto, he is always coming up with things. But, you know, Torkoal is just a huge defensive tank that also has the ability to Lava Plume and then, like, super hurt the opponent because of that 30% chance to burn. It's kind of like Milotic with Scald. Milotic is a really good special defensive Pokemon, but if it uses Scald, like I believe I mentioned Milotic earlier in the special defense tank episode, that it's really good so it can be specially defensive, and then it also has that Scald, which means if it gets that burn, it's now physically defensive as well. Awesome. Torkoal, it has a lot of really good options to burn or make your opponent very uncomfortable, which is really good. And I think one of the more important things right now is eliminating stat changes, since a lot of people are really just going for setup tanks, or not setup tanks, just setup sweepers and winning the game. They want to get their Mega Kangaskhan to a +6 in Sucker Punch. They want to get their Mega Mawile to a high degree in Sucker Punch. They also want their Mega Scizor. They want their Aegislash. They want their Pokemon that can just stat up and win the game. Dragonite's becoming pretty popular with that too. So Torkoal helps stop that. Crobat is a very, very good anti-meta Pokemon because it's an Infiltrator. It goes right through Substitute, which means it counters Baton Pass, and it has huge speed, so even without like going for that Jolly nature, you're looking at something that's pretty strong. It also has very strong attack and just a really good potential overall. I did a video on it because it does have a lot of anti-meta aspects. It has that haze, so it eliminates stat changes, and then it can go in with some hard-hitting Brave Bird, and also just has some good coverage behind that as well, like Cross Poison and moves like that. So it hits pretty well, and it can be a good reliable Pokemon. You throw a Sash on it, and you can start really making your opponent suffer. Next, we have Sableye. Also, I've heard Crobat is a good way to kind of help take care of Mega Kangaskhan just a bit, because you bring it in, you haze out its stats, and then you can start to punish it. So there's some options there wherever you go. Sableye is pretty strong. It just has that prankster ability with the Will-O-Wisp, so you're getting that priority burn on your opponent, and it's a ghost type, so it does absorb a lot of the hits that you can't anticipate. Same with Cofagrigus. Cofagrigus also has the ability Mummy, which means if your opponent's going to make contact, they're losing their ability, and that just makes it not okay. So he's good at shutting down Mega Kangaskhan as well. There's also quite a few other Pokemon that just have a pretty absurd ability. Cofagrigus is also good at Will-O-Wisping, stalling out, things like that. Quagsire is also a pretty strong Pokemon because of all the stats. It has the ability Unaware, which means it ignores the opponent's stat changes, which means whenever you're dealing with Quagsire, you're always on even ground with him, because he don't care. He's unaware. He's just going to be like, oh, what's that? That +6? I don't care. And then it also gets Stockpile, so you can turn it into a really good form of Stall. I believe it also gets Recover? Yeah. It gets Stockpile, Recover, and then you can go Infestation and Toxic. And now you have a really huge Pokemon that can just not take damage, because you can't outspeed it. You can't, or not outspeed it, but I mean you can't outstat up against it. You can't outspeed it with stats because it's not going to matter. So it's just going to outstall you, and if it gets set up, it can become really annoying and really pesky to take out. Because of that, Stockpile just pretty strong. And then we also have Clefable, who's been getting a lot of play, mostly because Cosmic Power on a tank is brutally overpowered, but the ability Magic Guard means that if the opponent is trying to set up, they're going to have a hard time because they can't status. If they lead with a Pokemon that's trying to status, it's not going to work. And also another Pokemon that's really... a Pokemon that's actually started as an anti-meta Pokemon, but eventually became part of the meta, is Espeon, because of its Magic Bounce ability. You put an Espeon in singles, and your opponent can't set up anything that you can either lead with Espeon or just throw out a Fake Out Pokemon on the first. And when I say Fake Out, I don't mean the move, I mean a Pokemon that's meant to kind of deceive your opponent, and you throw out something that, you know, it doesn't have anything to do with anything. It's just a regular Pokemon that's looking for an opportunity Then you switch in Espeon, well, that Stealth Rock is hitting your opponent. That Burn is hitting your opponent. So if your opponent is weary of this, it could give you free setup. And if your opponent recklessly goes into using statuses and you switch in and you get perfect predictions, well, not even perfect, you just get really good predictions, you're already on edge. So Espeon has that. There's a lot of other things that like people have been running, and just kind of looking what's popular, that things don't have the most like, you can't think of a counter to every Pokemon. Every Pokemon has a counter for sure. And I think that's why I feel that not every Pokemon is the strongest, most overpowered thing. That there is some way to stop it. It's just how far out of your comfort zone do you want to go to stop that Pokemon? And that's kind of where it is. It's like, do you want to run a Crobat, a Sableye, Torkoal? Do you want to feel forced to run any of these guys to have a huge edge? Sure, it doesn't seem fair, but if you don't like these Pokemon, it does make it a bit hard. But if you really want to be a kind of sneaky battler and get that edge on your opponent, it's worth running it. And that there's a lot of things that people are coming up with. So I've heard things like Pachirisu even being strong as an anti-meta Pokemon, that anything that can really just work. And there's a lot of things that work, and there's a lot of things that really can set up the way that the metagame is built and just do very well. So just keep looking for those options. A lot of you guys are creative out there, and it's really cool to see that it's like, I'm trying to give ideas. I'm not trying to spoon feed strategies or anything. If I can give ideas and then someone else can turn around and be like, he said to do that, but that inspired me to think about this, and now this is a lot stronger. That's what it's all about. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Just giving you a couple ideas on some anti-meta Pokemon. And if you can look at trends right now, we also have Pokemon that are generally tanky Pokemon. Like when I was talking about defense tanks, special defense tanks, those were very important because they do have a lot of anti-metagame aspects. That if you're trying to stop at one of your opponent's sweepers, best way to cancel their momentum is with a tank. Something that's going to break down their stall, something that's going to break down their setup, something that's going to outstall them and really try to force them into a worse situation that you can take advantage of. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you all have a nice day.